Hello and welcome to the first episode of the newly created channel, The Recliner Pundit. I think it does what it says on the tin ultimately. It lets you guys, it lets me discuss everything as we do as a natural fan of the sport or any sport. Sit there and make observations, comments, rants about sports that we see on TV that we think, arguably, I think we think we're better than them at those sports. So this channel's been created with the idea that we can open this up to fans around the world to get your view across and to discuss, like I said, all things sports related. This episode, we're going to really focus on the shortcomings of England in the Euro 2024 final, whereby obviously they lost 2-1 to Spain last night. We will then touch on other particular subjects in this video, looking at England's tournament as a whole, the future of Kane and Walker, and obviously I think the most important question, the most talked about question right now is what is next for Gareth Southgate. So needless to say, let's just get into the roundup of last night's game. Personally, for me, I think it was just so defensive. Everything was backwards. We let Spain play the game they wanted to play. Kane, I think what was the fact that I've seen batted around a fair few times was Kane had one touch in the opposition box. In fact, if you make a comparable for the last Euros, where we were obviously in the final against Italy, he had one touch there as well. So ultimately, if you've kind of got one of the best strikers, or I'll put that in quotations, one of the best strikers in the world, and certainly for England, he's been one of our best, most clinical players of the modern game of recently. That's not good enough. That really isn't good enough. I think from the very, very beginning of that game, tactically, we weren't astute. We didn't do the things that we did against Netherlands in the first half. Again, different formation versus the first half of the Netherlands game to what Gareth Southgate set up against Spain. I can't work that out. I cannot, for the life of me, work that one out, because in the first half against Netherlands, England played extremely well, dominated the game. Yes, they went 1-0 down, but as per all the games, they sort of seemed to come alive, which again, I just find as a bizarre move. I think it's a bizarre piece in general that you go 1-0 down, all of a sudden you wake up. I think you start quick, you dominate early, but England haven't done that throughout the tournament, and it showed in the final. We let Spain come out, they controlled possession. I think the stat was 70% in favour of Spain for ball possession in that first half. What are you going to do with the other 30%? And that's the most important thing here. What did we do in that first half with the other 30%? Well, the answer to that is absolutely nothing. I don't really remember a corner for England. I think it gave away loads of corners to Spain throughout the whole game in general. But in the first half, we gave very little. Now, a lot of people I saw on social media were saying, well, actually, that was a good first half. Really, really progressive. We kind of nullified Yamal. But really, is that the achievement in the first half? That's great. I think we kept it 0-0. That's really, really good. Now, that might be Southgate's plan, to nullify the opposition, try and squeeze out a goal in the second half and exploit them that way round. That didn't happen. You get to half-time, Rodri came off, and I'm telling you now, if anybody puts this in the comment section disagrees, I'll be very, very surprised. But we're all sitting there saying, Rodri's come off, game on. Game on. That is that bit of luck that England needed. It's a bit of luck that they seem to have had a severe amount of luck across the tournament. But him coming off, I thought, would have changed a bit of the mentality, a bit of the psyche of Spain, but it didn't. Within sort of 90 seconds or whatever it was, we were 1-0 down because, again, and I'll go on to Walker in a different aspect in a second, but we fell asleep. We completely fell asleep. And the first half, where you've got Shaw completely all over Yamal, shutting him down at every aspect. I think he went to 3 to 4 challenges with Yamal and won all of them cleanly. Walker did nullify Williams in the first half, but again, he didn't do a lot. He was still getting crosses in. Williams was, cutting in on the right hand, cutting on the right foot, whipping that ball in. Okay, wasn't executed very well, but that's needless to say that they were doing that. Second half, that goal that we conceded, That is extremely poor. I don't know why Walker, if you watch it back, Walker drifts inside with the two centre-backs. I don't know why he needs to do that. We have centre-backs there for a particular reason. Stones was already marking Morata. I don't have a clue as to why Walker needed to come in there. As a wing-back or as a right-back, left-back, you are looking over your shoulder at all times. Williams had 10, 20 yards in front of him, just free space to come into. Good finish, no denying that. It was a really good finish, but again, really, really poor. Now, up until that particular point, like I said, Kane had one touch in the box, wasn't commanding the game, wasn't in the game whatsoever, was making no impression at all. I believe at half-time we should have made that change. Southgate didn't. He put them back out again. That's absolutely fine. And they fell asleep. 60 minutes comes, Southgate decides to make a change against Watkins. Now that is quite a key piece in this whole puzzle, because at the point that Watkins comes on, he's pressing, which is absolutely everything that Kane can't do. He doesn't press the ball, so therefore, if you look at the blocks, between attack and midfield, there's big gaps. If you look at midfield to defence, it looks empty. If you don't have a pressing style, you're basically, when you surrender possession, exactly what happened last night, they can penetrate. You fall into a complete block behind the ball, which is okay, but it doesn't really give anything back in terms of for England. It doesn't allow them to kind of go up the pitch anymore. You literally fall behind the line, in your lines, in your blocks, and just invite the attack on. So when Watkins come on, huge change in dynamic. We put Spain on the back foot. We got our goal back, which is around the 75th minute or something around that sort of time. I can't remember exactly. But we were pressurising. We were pushing Spain back. And one of the observations I did make about Spain in general, it's very hard to see where they would falter as a team, because collectively they look absolutely brilliant. They're playing fantastic football. But they do not like turning backwards. That was pretty evident when Watkins came on and Palmer came on. They do not like going backwards whatsoever. And when we did push them backwards and got them on their back foot, we scored a goal. Okay, Palmer's shot took a slight deflection, but it's a fantastic shot anyway. Fantastically well worked. Into Bellingham, back out, Saka, back out to Palmer. It was absolutely fantastic. At that particular point, and this is what is the most frustrating thing about this whole thing, watching this, why didn't we push for more? It happened in the Euro final against Italy, 1-0 up, dominating the game, and then just sat back. We were all over Spain at that particular time, and then we just literally went back behind the lines again. Every player camped behind the halfway line, saying basically, do you fancy a goal? Try and score. We cannot fundamentally do that. If you want to win trophies, you have to pressurise. Like I said, press from the front, get out as quickly as you can. If you look at the Netherlands game, their goal that Simon scored, he got the ball. He had 10 or 15 yards to place that shot. It was a great shot, don't get me wrong. Do still think Pickford should have saved it with his little T-Rex arms, but he should have saved that anyway. But anyway, irrelevant. You can't, between midfield and defence, those lines allow for 10 to 15 yards of space to allow somebody to take a shot. That is unacceptable. And if you looked at last night's play, they're playing through us. There was gaps. It looked like nobody knew what the responsibility was. They were completely out on their legs. And Bellingham, he's the one for me personally. If you look at him, it's like Gareth Southgate was scared to take him off. Yes, he scores a worldie, an overhead kick, last 30 seconds or minute of the game to kind of save England in the knockouts. However, there's no denying the stat is, he's played 100 odd games or something across the last 2 seasons. He looks leggy. He gets to 45, and after 45 on every single game I've watched him play, he looks leggy. He's blown. So you've got to take risks, and we haven't done that as a team. So generally speaking, Southgate only has himself to blame. Now, I'm going to move on to now the England's tournament as a whole. I think underwhelming is a word I'd use. But I think to summarise everything simply, the word that is quite key to this is regression. The group stages, I think we scored, what did we score, 2 goals or something along those lines. We got a 0-0 against Slovenia, I think it was. And then we got a 1-1 against Denmark, and then obviously we beat Serbia on the opening game 1-0. Now, for the first 30 minutes of that Serbia game, we were outstanding. I was sitting there, I'm sure you guys were as well. I was sitting there as a fan thinking, bloody hell, this is looking good. We're going to blow these people apart, to be honest with you. But then, just like we've seen in the rest of the tournament, they get a goal, or they go 1-0 behind, get a goal back, and then we sit back. You cannot, at international level, just go completely park the bus. It doesn't work. We stink the place out, and quite frankly, this whole tournament, we have stunk the place out alongside France. So at least we're in the boat somewhere together on this journey. But it was just so poor. I've seen it many a times quoted, and I completely agree. We have been a moments team. Gareth Southgate has got away with get out of jail free cards, i.e. he's got, on paper, arguably, and I'm going to say this on paper, arguably the best team in the world at the moment, based principally on form, not this whole value piece, because that's just vague and ambiguous. Based on form, based on positioning, expected goals, defensive tackle. If you base everything down on paper, statistically, they are the best team in the world. They effectively pick themselves. So I'm not sure completely on Southgate's positioning as the manager in general for this. But you've got to instill in the mentality, in the philosophy, that you have, like I said, the best players on paper, the best attacking players on paper, that's for sure. You've got to let them go. You're 1-0 up. I mean, you don't see Jude Bellingham for Real Madrid 1-0 up and they got Ancelotti says, do you know what, I'm just going to park the bus on this one, lads. Sit behind the ball and we'll just sit here for ages, shall we? It doesn't happen, because world-class managers have a plan, a philosophy, an identity, and a proper mentality. I look at Southgate, and the reality is he was a defender or a centre defensive midfielder. And it shows. Those players look like they've got dog leads on them. Getting a tug back every time they go forward. Really, really poor. I just want to bring up 2 particular points in general. I was infuriated, and I want to see your comments in the comment sections around this, see if you noted it as well. Around 2 pieces. I think one of them was with Southgate saying, we start slow in tournaments. We've done this before. If you look at the set pattern, we've done this before in the Euros and the World Cup. We started slow in the group stages, then we progressively got better. Basically, you're saying we've played shit and we've played shit in the other ones, but do you know what? We've had a bit of luck and we've got through. That is piss poor. You cannot do that. That's unacceptable. You have to make note that it's been so poor and you are going to do something about it. As a fan, you want to hear that. Second point is around Kyle Walker, and he drives me mad. I'll come on to Kyle Walker and Kane in a second around kind of what their next steps are. Does it kind of relate to them being in England anymore, in the squad anymore, etc. But for now, if anybody noted it, I think it was after the last group game, which was Slovenia, which was 0-0. Again, England stunk the place out on that particular game. The most dull watch you'll ever see. Made Slovenia look a world-class team, as we did against Denmark and Serbia. But he came out in the post-match interview, and he said, I'm sure it's to a BBC reporter on the pitch live, and said along the lines that I'm disappointed at the reaction we are getting as players from our own fans. They are booing us, when actually, if you look at it, we have qualified, and that's the main aim, that's the goal, so we shouldn't really be booed. Excuse my language here, but I think he's taking the piss a little bit. You've got fans, yes, they're booing, but these fans are hard working people. They aren't on £300,000 a week. 100, 150, all these ludicrous numbers, especially Kyle Walker, he's probably on 250, 300,000 pounds a week or something balmy like that. They aren't on that amount of money. They're paying hard-earned money to come to Germany to support their team. They've paid, and let's face it, airfares are exacerbated at the moment because these are in demand destinations. So Germany, a flight to Germany, probably about £100, £200 normally return. You're probably looking at £500, £600 return. You've then got the hotels, which are overinflated their prices because people are coming there, so they can just charge what they want. So you're probably looking at £300 a night, £400. I could be totally wrong here, but it's probably that on average. And then you've got the cost of the ticket. The cost of the ticket is, again, ambiguous because if you look on the site, if you got them when they first pre-released or when they first released on the site, you're probably looking at 150, 200 euros a ticket for England. However, people were buying them, selling them on everything else. They were ranging, you could get a ticket 500, 600 euros. It was that wide. So people are spending, on average, think about their cost of being there, the drinks, the food and everything else. They're probably spending £2,000 to £3,000. I think they have every fucking right to boo a team when they're playing shit. It's natural, you know. So I think you can arguably say, do you know what? Rather than going at the fans for, you know, your shit performance, why don't you sit there and acknowledge, look, we haven't been great, we have been poor, and I apologise to the England fans, but this will get better. That's the message you come out with, not, it's a bit frustrating, we're getting booed, it's the only nation that gets booed when they're qualifying for tournaments. No, Kyle Walker, not happening. They can boo, they have every right to boo, they've paid hard-earned money that a lot of these people will take a long time to earn to come and support you, and they're coming and they're seeing 0-0s, a scrape through 1-0, and a 1-1 where you've played absolutely dog shit. So, excuse the fans if they're unhappy with that. I'm sure if you go to your little Saint-Tropez beach and your little Caesar salad at 55 bloody euros or whatever comes out, you're not happy with it, I'm sure you'll complain about that too. It's a part of life. Take it on the chin, acknowledge it, and actually say to fans, look, have empathy with it. I'm sorry, this hasn't been good enough. We are going to get better. But unfortunately, under the regime of Southgate, everything's nicey-nicey. Got to be politically correct. Got to say, no, it's unacceptable. And it really, really, you can tell by my tone of voice, pissed me off when he did that. Because that is just not on. Whew. Anyway, let's move on to Kane and to Walker. There'll probably be a few more players that you'll want to put into this too. But I think it was quite clear and evident to me, and I'm only going to go into this in a couple of minutes. Kane looks like he's lost his legs in general. I mean, what is he, 30? He come to 31. It's almost like the scene has caught up with him a little bit. He's coming off of an injury. I wouldn't be surprised if he was carrying an injury the whole tournament. I knew in the Euros and the World Cup he had a lot of injections on his ankles. You used to get a specialist in to come and help him out with it to get him through games. He's come off of off an injury already. He had 3 weeks between Bayern season, or when he finished with Bayern, to going into this tournament. He didn't look sharp. He didn't look fit. His head wasn't at it. And he looked like he was towing a few trailers, if I'm honest, because he just was leggy from the get-go. Now, he is clinical. There's no doubt about that. And arguably, you could say you've got to have him in his team. He scores goals. He is clinical. But the players you have around him, your Bowen, your Palmers, your Sakas, your Fodens, Bellingham, the list goes on of world-class players at the moment that are in form. They can score goals. So sometimes, and you're the captain of you're captain of the squad, I get that, you're the captain of the country, all this kind of lot. But you, again, Tony, Watkins, these people are scoring week in, week out in the Premier League. Unfortunately, I think Kane has run his course. Walker, now I've had my little rant on him. We talk about Walker as, he's got pace to burn, he's a road runner, he is just absolutely lightning quick. He had Mbappe in his back pocket. Yeah, that's great if you're going back towards your goal, which England did do for most of the tournament. The issue comes in a right wing back, or that's what I'd kind of explain him as. You want to call him as a right centre back in a 3 or a right wing back, whatever you want to call him as. The natural modern day one goes forward, makes the overlapping thing. If you look at him for Man City now, he's doing the same thing. He's coming inside and he's not going up as far anymore. If you've got pace to burn and you're 1-0 down or 2-1 down, whatever it is, make those bloody runs. Use your pace. You're going out the tournament, if not, or even still, to progress in the tournament, use the energy. I just saw nothing that made him even look like he wanted to be there, if I'm honest with you. Infuriates me. You know, talking about he's got all of this pace and blah, blah. It's just, really? You know, you put that shirt on for England, you're running your heart off. You're running your socks off. You just... I couldn't even... How lucky are they to be playing on that pitch? And he's got this talent, he's got this pace, and you don't use it. So then you question, does he need to be in that squad? Apparently I did see some sort of article somewhere that said that Southgate pleaded with him to stay on and play for England because, you know, he was thinking about walking away. Well, I think it is time for him to walk away. There's no doubt he's got some fantastic pace, but actually if you look at the execution of what he does, it's quite sloppy. Yesterday was a prime example. We're up at the box area and he absolutely bangs it over to the other side of the pitch. I mean, that is a simple pass, a simple cross into the box. He isn't going forward anymore. And when he does get the ball, you look at him, he'll look left, he'll go back inside to the centre-backs. I don't see anything happening with him. He's just... It doesn't look interested to me. And I think him alongside Kane, and I know Kane's going to be controversial because he's clinical, whatever else, but if you want attacking football, and if you looked at Spain yesterday, you looked at other teams that we have played, or other teams that have played in that tournament, they've got pace, they've got energy, they understand the positioning, they press. Some of the teams that pressed that were absolutely phenomenal, Romania, Slovakia, they were absolutely phenomenal. The teams that actually want it, look like they really want it. They press from the front and they press as a unit. We don't have those players in attack. Well, we do in the wings and in the midfield, but if you don't have your forward doing that, you can't press from the wings. It doesn't happen. You want to naturally press the centre-backs because they're the ones that are likely to make a mistake, or they're likely to, spray a pass somewhere they shouldn't do. If you press from the front, from your striker, it sets a precedence to the team. We're all going to go as one unit. And Kane does not have that anymore. You could say you can remove the goals, but like I said, these players, week in, week out, Tony, Watkins, they're scoring goals. They can score goals. So I don't see it as a worry. But again, put your views, put your comments in that comment section. Do you think Kane and Walker's day, or the horse for the course, is now run? I just think it's time to possibly relook at it. If in general, if I'm being honest, doesn't necessarily mean exclude Kane from the squad. I think Walker doesn't want to be there anyway, but it doesn't mean exclude Kane from the squad. I just think maybe we need to look at what is his role within that squad. And actually, he's come off, and it's been proven throughout the tournament. He's come off, and we've had a different dynamic. That's them two, I think, summarise for me. I think I just want to finish on the main topic of debate, the one that's pretty hot in the press right now, which is what is next for Gareth Southgate. Now, I heard Simon Jordan on TalkSport this morning. I've heard Alan Shearer on the recent podcast, The Rest is Football, Gary Lineker and Michael Richards. Brilliant podcast, by the way. I would definitely check that one out. And it's not often that I would disagree with Alan Shearer. And actually, he basically said that when asked, what's next for Southgate and does he continue with England, he said, I think it's for Southgate to decide that. Now, it's funny because I did have that opinion before the final. And I said this to a few friends that, I do think Southgate has a decision that he will make and he will need to make along with the FA. And I think that decision would have been, and I made this comment already, that decision was in his hands and he could have dictated whether he stayed or he went if you win that Euro 2024 final. Because at the moment, if you look back on what has happened, if we speak about Southgate in general, from the very start, he picked up an England squad or an England team as a nation that weren't really interested with it anymore. I think he picked it up after the Iceland game, which was a disaster, as we know. And he came in, he's united England, not just from a journalistic or press perspective, from an FA perspective, whatever else. He brought unity to that team. That team, from club to country, has always been a difficult transition, i.e. that rapport between players. That's now done. That's fixed. He's done a fantastic job of that. He's been great with the media. He's carried out the FA's philosophy and policies, and what he said has always been correct and politically correct, should I say, or, under the regime of the FA. And he's brought hope. He has brought hope to England. The expectation from England was always underdog. They've now gone from underdogs to, our expectation is we hit a semi-final or we go to a final. That's fantastic. That's an achievement. That's a real success. But you can't argue that 3 tournaments now, we've had 1 Euro final, obviously we went out in the World Cup, and now we've got to another final of Euros. And to gauge success is winning trophies. For me personally, that's what it is. You don't go, he's done a great job, give him another 5 years because we want to go to another semi-final or final. No, you want to win. We must win now. We have this golden generation of players, and we talk about golden generations in the past, but this is by far the best quality players we've ever had in the England shirt, and they should be winning stuff. But it takes somebody, and I think this is where Southgate lacks. It takes somebody tactically astute. It takes somebody that has a philosophy, a mentality, and the most important thing, and I think, and I hope you agree with this, but it takes an identity. And I don't know what England's identity is. And I'd love somebody, again, if you know what it is, if you can see what the outline of that looks like, that model from what Southgate's doing, what is the identity of England? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I don't think the players do. Because it doesn't look like, if you looked at Bellingham, if you looked at some of the other players, I don't think it looked like half the time they're enjoying themselves. And that's wrong. This shouldn't be happening. We need an out-and-out serial manager that's going to take us into the next step. So yes, I understand the point around Southgate should really be making his own decisions, but what is it you want really as a fan? Do you want to just make the latter stages and then just be happy because you crashed out the final again, or crashed out in the semi-final? But don't worry, we're building something here. We're not building anymore. We've got the best players that we'll probably ever have for a long time. For me, I think the FA need to make a decision and say, do you know what? Again, they need to put a marker in the sand and say, do you know what? This is what we stand for. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much. I think Southgate wants to go into club management anyway. But if he's in agreement and alignment with what the direction the FA want to go into, again, they need to plan out what is the direction you want to take. Do you want to cross the line into the trophy, into categories of winning trophies? Or are you just happy to settle? Because we are settling now. That's what we've done. We've come to the agreement that nobody, and I don't care who you are, before this tournament, we were out and out. The bookies, with the bookies, as an out and out favourite. I was staggered because we haven't managed to cross this line for a very, very long time, or since '66. How can you be favourites? We choked. What we did last night, we choked. And that, for me, isn't success. That is regression. Because if you look again, I'm talking about the identity. In the Euro final, in the Euros, when we got the Euro final back in Wembley against Italy, that Euros, I thought genuinely, we looked as a team, we looked together. That hasn't changed. But the style of play has changed. We've become more cautious. Everything's going backwards, sideways, across the pitch, left and right. And it's like we almost are worried and cautious around what the other team's going to do, rather than focusing on, do you know what, we are going to be the best team here, and have a watch. Watch this play out. These should be sort of, should be going to the change room saying, do you know what, boys, go and smash these lot apart. Set the world alight. Go and do what you do for your club and country. What you do for your club, sorry. It hasn't happened. And for me, from a Southgate perspective, and tactically, he's thrown this team from left to right in terms of what he's doing. Netherlands, it's the back three. Played really, really well. Really well. in that first half. Fantastic. Dropped off in the second half, but that's been the story of every bloody game for England so far. Either the first 20, 30 minutes great, or in some cases never. But they've played well in the first half, and the second half has dropped off. Again, tactically, what are you doing to change it? He hasn't done that. He hasn't thought of a plan B. He's made some great subs, and they've paid off. But they are moments. You're asking for a wild card, a get out of jail free card from a player to produce a worldie. And they have. Saka, Bellingham. They've done that. And they've got him out of basically losing his job way sooner than now. I respect Southgate. I think he's done, like I said, a fantastic job. But I think it's time for fresh eyes. Somebody that wants to play attacking football is going to take England into the next dynamic of winning a trophy. And that's it for me personally. I'd like to know from your perspective who you think the next coach should be, or the next manager of England should be. If it's not Southgate, or if it is Southgate, give your reasons why. Why do you think Southgate should be the manager still going into the World Cup in 2026 in the US? But again, I'll just throw this out there. My personal opinion, the FA will obviously look ideally for an English manager since the sort of failings of the Capello regime. But arguably, it's going to float two names out there: Pep Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. I'm not sure the FA are going to go well on a German manager, but anyway, that's a different ball game. But Pep Guardiola, serial winner. He's done pretty much every trophy: the Champions League, Premier League, Community Shield, FA Cup, League Cup. He's done everything. There's nothing that guy hasn't done. And what he does do is his mentality with those players. He lets them know who is in charge there. He's not a friend. He's not going to play safe. He is there to do one and one thing only: win. He doesn't care about anything else. And the way he manages players, whether it's rightly or wrongly in some of the actions he does, if you look at like the Calvin Phillips situation and everything else, irrelevant. What he does is he wins bloody games. And again, same for Jurgen Klopp as well. He wins games. He gets the best out of those players. He nurtures them. He brings them into the first team. You've got some young players coming into Liverpool, 17, 18, and they look brilliant. And that's all of those managers' doings. They've won Champions Leagues. They do win trophies. And I think if England want to take that next step, that's the route you've got to go down. And personally for me, I'd be excited to watch England, hugely behind them, and with a bit of air of confidence that we know as a team what we're trying to do. You can see what they do as them two managers, Klopp and Guardiola. You know the style of play they're going to play. They will dominate the ball. Intricate passing, quick, it's pace, and that's, again, the biggest thing we've lacked is pace on that football. That football is moving slower than a snail. You've got to move the ball quicker. The squad has to be moved around, and he won't be scared. Those two managers, Klopp and Guardiola, they will not be scared about bringing Bellingham off, or bringing Kane off, or not even selecting Kane. They won't be scared about that. They trust their process, they're confident in what they do, and they get results. It's as simple as that. You can underline that, tick that off. They know what they are doing. We get them for England. This will change England's outlook completely. We go into the World Cup, and arguably if you want to put us up there as a top three favourites at that particular point, I would feel confident. I'd feel comfortable with that, because I think, do you know what? We've got a real chance of this. A real chance, because those players will want to play for Pep or Klopp. The other option is a slight sidestep, because the FA, knowing the FA, they want an English manager. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be too disheartened if we went for Eddie Howe. There's quotes going around about Graham Potter. I mean, come on, let's behave ourselves here a little bit. Graham Potter did great at Brighton. Fantastic. Unreal, in fact, for Brighton. De Zerbi's come in, and he's taken them to another level. Potter then went off to Chelsea, and that was an absolute fucking flop. You could arguably say that club was sort of on the decline at that particular point. There was a lot of changes happening, everything else. He was unsupported, whatever else. Didn't have much say in who they brought in, etc. Again, you can only manage the squad you've got, and it wasn't very good, let's face it. He's definitely not the person for me. Sean Dyche could be a good option, but again, great defensively, don't know if I've seen many world-beating attacking performances from a Sean Dyche squad. But Eddie Howe could be a good shout. Wouldn't mind Eddie Howe whatsoever. But then you question, there's no English manager at the moment on the Premier League. So, again, what are you looking for in this England team? Do you think that they can change that philosophy? You think an England manager could come in and win a major trophy? Question marks over that. To be honest with you, there's major question marks. Yeah, that's my rant over for today anyway. If you want to have your say on anything, like I've said throughout this episode, put your comments in the section below this video. I'll give them a shout out. I'll use them as topics for debate. Really want to hear from you guys. If you want to hit the like, hit the subscribe, that's really helpful for the channel. Really, really appreciate that. But yeah, over and out.